Hey everyone, Anthony Fantano here, internet's busiest music nerd. And is Kanye West the most egotistical rapper? The sample set and a series of graphs I'm about to show you may surprise you. This is like clickbait I'm doing here, but it's actually clickbait that is actually about what I'm talking about. A fan of the show who runs this blog, you could find it at bensbigblog.com.au. bensbigblog.com.au. It's linked down there in the description box. He does a lot of data collection posts and a lot of interesting and somewhat pieces of journalistic awesomeness over on this blog, specifically related to hip hop. And this post over here I found really intriguing, which he sent directly to me. He's gathered or sort of stacked the list of 11 very popular, very mainstream, very well-known rappers. You guys know them: Nicki Minaj, Kendrick Lamar's on here, Chance the Rapper's on here. Pretty much everybody, Kanye West, as I said, who you know and who you care about or who you're at least aware of is on this list. But again, it's just sort of a top 11 here because it's not everybody. And he grabbed albums from these people, not necessarily mixtapes or anything like that, but he grabbed albums from these people and he broke it down lyric by lyric by lyric and saw how much these people really self-reference, whether it be saying things are theirs or, talking about, you as in me or my, or talking in the third person or me, or using the word or the letter I to refer to oneself. And while we think of Kanye West as a really egotistical rapper, as a rapper who only thinks of himself, as a rapper who's only concerned with himself, and that's certainly the image he puts forward when he's engaging in all sorts of, antics and whatever award show or whatnot. However, when you look at the guy's music, which is a place of self-reflection, a place of, very personal creation, is he actually talking about himself as much as we would assume one would, given his ego status, given his ego size, given just how much we think he thinks of himself, how highly he thinks of himself? Now, I could spoil it ahead of time and say, in this top 11 list, Kanye doesn't even land at the top of the list, surprisingly. And it'll be interesting to sort of go through this list and see which of these rappers, and listen, we're not talking about underground rappers here. I'm sure there are rappers who rarely refer to themselves in this way, or if they do, maybe it's in more of an artsy fartsy way or something. I really don't know. All I'm saying is that we have a random data set here of very popular rappers. And let's just go through this list and see how much each of them is talking about themselves. So let's go up and reveal to you guys number 11. We're going to be going through the list backwards, since it's going to be like number 1 is the person who talks most about themselves. The person over here who is at number 11, believe it or not, is actually Chance the Rapper. Now, of course, there are probably rappers out there who Chance, talks more about himself than. There are rappers out there who talk about themselves more than Chance. But again, we're just like grabbing a sample set of very popular mainstream rappers here to kind of get a bit of an idea, a frame of reference with a bunch of artists everybody knows. But as Ben writes over here, Chance the Rapper has one album, over 4,000 words on this album. 292 mentions, a self-reference essentially every 15.3 words, 298 words per song, 292 mentions per album, an average of 585 words, and it says over here at the top, Chance the Rapper, 6.5% of all words are direct self-references to his self. Which, interesting. You would think about just how much rappers talk about themselves generally, me, 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 that number would be higher. At least I would have expected that, your average rapper. And I would think of Chance the Rapper as, an average rapper, not in terms of like skill, but a rapper who most people know, most people enjoy. When you think rapper, Chance the Rapper, as far as like, mainstream contemporary artists go, is most likely going to pop up in the mind of most people. And, most people do tend to think of hip hop as being very egotistical. So it is, nice and interesting to sort of see that the number is that low. He has so many words, so many songs, so many bars, but yet only 6.5 of it self-references. The way that some people who hate hip-hop talk about the genre, you would think that it's like, oh yeah, like 75% of the time he's just talking about himself. Whereas clearly here, that's not directly the case. Obviously, Chance the Rapper and other rappers don't rap directly about themselves, but are rapping about things that impact them or experiences that they have had. But again, that's not the same as like a direct self-reference. But let's see who's at number 10. Number 10. Who's at number 10? Kendrick Lamar. Kendrick Lamar, a little more egotistical than Chance the Rapper, talking about himself a little bit more than Chance, at 8% of all words, being references to himself. Mine, you, my, third person, me, and I, 55%, which, I mean, come on, man. That's the title of one of his songs. 4 albums, over 33,000 words, 2,000 mentions, over 2,000 mentions of himself. Basically a self-reference in Kendrick Lamar's music every 12.88 words, and 47 mentions of self per song, which again, considering you have some songs on there where he's rapping more about himself than others, because some tracks are conceptual, some tracks not so much. I wonder if there are some songs where, there's like a large sort of gap because, he has a, this sort of proves that theory right there, because I haven't read through every single bar of this. It says most prolific is the song You at 19.9%, or a self-reference every 5 words, which is pretty crazy. So 20% of the time in that song, Kendrick is rapping directly or talking directly about himself. Let's move on to see who is at number 9. Number 9, it's JayZ. JayZ. Mr. Businessman, and he's locked at Kendrick Lamar with 8%. So they're pretty much like at a tie over here. Most prolific, the song A Dream with 17.3%, and least prolific, The Rock with 0 mentions. Whoa! JayZ with 0 mentions directly of himself. Comparing over here, it sort of seems like it's almost like the same ratio of, from one graph to another, looking at the ratio of I to you to mine to my to third person me, it's almost like the same, it's like very close to the same ratio from one artist to another. Like, although JayZ here, it says that he raps about himself in the third person like 10% of the time, and Kendrick Lamar, third person 1%, which that's probably like the biggest change in pace. Mine is always pretty small, which again, given the materialism, although it's kind of more of an implied mine when a lot of rappers are rapping about things that they have, but it's funny to see JayZ just really having a big taste for rapping about himself in the third person 10% of the time when he is rapping about himself, in a direct way, which is, only 8% of the time. I know this is a little nerdy and it's kind of splitting hairs, but this is the kind of stuff I geek out over and I think is hilarious. So JayZ at number 9 out of 11. So let's see who's at number 8. Who the heck is at number 8? Who is at number 8? A$AP Rocky. Okay, A$AP Rocky, and only smidgen it just past JayZ with 8.3% of all words. A$AP Rocky, it was counted that he had 2 albums, 11,000 words, 964 mentions, a self-reference every 12.2 words. And most prolific, the song Excuse Me, with 14.3%, and least prolific, the song West Side, which I recall liking that track, I think, at 0.3%. And most words in a song, the song Jukebox Joints, with 652. So A$AP Rocky, staying at number 8. Seems like A$AP Rocky is pretty big on rapping about himself in the third person, too. With talking about I, 50, like almost exactly 50% of the time. So there you go. Now, who's at number 7 here? Kanye West is at number 7. So Kanye West isn't even in the top 5 of this list, of a list of 11 very relevant rappers, which is pretty funny. Again, we think of Kanye, very egotistical, very centered on the self. But here in his own music, that's not necessarily reflected. And again, this isn't a list of every popular rapper out there. If you were to get, every relevant rapper on this list, it would be interesting to sort of see where he lands. I would guess that it's probably still pretty low. He probably still wouldn't end up in the top half of the list, but let's see. And with Kanye, it's interesting to sort of see how low he is, because you have a larger sample set here, because Kanye has 7 albums to sort of pull from. JayZ as well has a big discography, but Kanye has a big discography too, certainly bigger than Chance the Rapper's. 37,000 words, 3,000 mentions, a self-reference every 11.9 words. The most prolific being I Love Kanye with 28.7% of the time talking about himself directly. Obviously, it's pretty clear as to why he's doing that. And the least prolific song Crack Music at 0.02%, or a mention of himself every 415 words. So that's pretty intriguing. So Kanye West, 7th place. So who's above Kanye? We have 6 more rappers above Kanye's head, all of whom rap about themselves more than Kanye does in a direct fashion. Who's at number 6? J. Cole. J. Cole, he's such a main brain. He's J. Cole. No, J. Cole's fine. J. Cole rapping about himself, although, let me see. Kanye, not as big as rapping about himself in the third person, but he does like saying I quite a bit. Sitting over here at like 64%. But J. Cole, third person, 6%. Me, my, mine, you, I, 57%. J. Cole, most prolific with the song Saint Tropez at 25% of the time. J. Cole is literally referencing himself in that song, which is quite a bit to think that a quarter of the time a guy is using words that directly sort of reference himself, because it's like there's so many words you could be using, and it's almost like a crutch at that point. Least prolific being the song Never Told is 0.3%, or a mention every 35 words. So J. Cole, 9% of all words, more than Kanye, rapping about himself more than Kanye West. And let's move on and see who's at number 5. Let's see who's in the top 5. Drake rapping about himself almost 10% of the time. Disgusting. And again, with these rappers, you would think Drake rapping about himself, he does that all the time, or directly referencing himself in his music. That happens all the time. No, it's just 10%. Just 10%. Over here we have another pie chart breakdown. I don't know why every pie chart is sort of like labeled and colored differently. It's kind of weird, but maybe because it took him a long time to sort of get all this data together. But here we have, let's see, me, third person, just 2% of the time, Drake, third person. And let's see, 0%, what is that, like the bluish color? It must be mine. So Drake isn't really rapping about things being mine that much. The Real Her being his least prolific, 0.4%, and the most prolific being the song Glow, with just 18.1%. So even though Drake is higher than J. Cole here, J. Cole Saint Tropez, a quarter of the time rapping about himself directly. Meanwhile, Drake's most prolific song over here, just at 18.1%. But still, generally, overall, Drake rapping about himself directly more than J. Cole is. Let's move on. Let's see who's at number 4. Top 4, man. Future at 10%. Future rapping about himself nearly 10% of the time, 9.9% of all words being direct self-references. I, me, third person, my, mine, you. Let's see. In comparing this with the J. Cole one, Future certainly does rapping about I with 67%. Not that big on third person, just sitting at 4%. Yeah, it's pretty interesting. And most prolific groupies with 20%. Meanwhile, the song Selfish, ironically enough, rapping about himself in a direct fashion 0.2% of the time. You would think with the song title being Selfish, he'd be like, I, me, my, mine, you, third person. Sorry, I'm a nerd. But you guys know that. So we're at the top 4. Future in 4th place, 10% here. Thank you very much, Ben, for this amazing post. This is hilarious. Let's see who's at number 3. Big Sean. Pretty much tying it up with Future here with 9.9% of all words. And chart not looking vastly different from Future's. Not vastly different. Like he's kind of hitting a lot of the same percentage ratios that Future is, like a few percentiles off here and there, but it's not vastly different. Most prolific, the song First Chain with 14.6%, and the song I Know being his least prolific with 0.4%. Let's see who's at number 2. Kid Cudi with 10.1% of all words. So Kid Cudi, just thinking of it, again, in terms of self-references and pure ego. And keep in mind that all of these people are sort of inching each other out by a matter of mere percentage points. But still, across Kid Cudi's 5 albums and 27,000 words, he has 2,800 self-references. The most prolific being the song Insides Out, and the least being We Ait. with his least prolific with 0 self-mentions. So not even a single self-mention, I, me, third person, my, mine, you, throughout that entire track. So you got to give it to Kid Cudi on that one. And with Kid Cudi's Cudi Zone being the track of his that has the highest word count, period. And let's see who's at number 1. Who is at number 1? It's a good question. Who's at number 1? So they're above 10%. They're at the top of the list over here. And keep in mind, this is just kind of a sample set of rappers. There could be rappers potentially that rap about themselves more than this person, probably are. But again, we're just using some of the most popular rappers here as just kind of a bit of a frame of reference. So this is not necessarily indicative of this person being the person who raps most about themselves, period, across the entire genre. Who's at number 1? Nicki Minaj with 11.5% of all words. You jump like 1.5%, which I think is one of the largest jumps across this entire thing. With Nicki Minaj rapping about herself, again, 11.5% of the time. The ratios aren't that crazy. In fact, it seems like she raps using the word I less than a lot of other rappers do. I mean, the balance of these references here doesn't seem like vastly different. Just making sure I have the pie chart here correctly. I'm sorry about that, guys. But let's see. 3 albums, 17,000 words, 2,000 explicit references to herself. So, keep in mind here, we're just kind of pulling from 3 records here. It doesn't necessarily mean anything, but it's still 3 records all the same. On Right By My Side, she referenced herself every 3.5 words, 28% of the time. 28% of the song. Her most word-laden song is All Things Go with 718 words. And he doesn't seem to have a least prolific song listed here, or if he does, I'm not seeing it. But yeah, to think that Nicki Minaj has a song where she directly raps about herself or uses words that directly self-reference 28% of the time, that's quite a lot. It's quite a lot. To think that that's dominating the song that much. And yeah, that's pretty much the list over here. At number 1, Nicki Minaj. Then down we have Kid Cudi, Big Sean at number 3, Future, Drake at number 5, J. Cole, Kanye West at number 7, 8, A$AP Rocky. Then we have JayZ. Then we have Kendrick Lamar. And finally, at 11, Chance the Rapper with 6.5% of all words. Guys, thank you for watching. This is all linked down there in the description box. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. Hope you guys enjoyed this list. And yeah, shout out again to Ben and his big blog for putting this together, because it's really interesting. I love these statistics. I love kind of sort of seeing weird stuff like this, and I know my audience does as well. So yeah, this has been a really fun video. Hope you guys are doing well. Thank you again for watching. Over here next to my head is another video that you should check out. Probably that video that I did where I was kind of breaking down how much artists are sort of loved in certain segments of America, state by state. We'll link that video to you, and you can hit the link to subscribe to the channel. All right, I'll see you guys in the next one. You're the best. Bye-bye.